So, tonight, what we're going to talk about is solving multi step word problems with numbers given in any form. Whether we're given fractions in the word problems, decimals, percents, we have to be able to handle deciphering the word problem and working with numbers in any form. Like we might be given 1/2, which happens to be the same as 0.5, or 5/10, which happens to be the same as 50%. And we have to understand no matter what form a number is given in, we got to be able to figure out what it means within the problem. So our objective tonight is I can apply properties of operations to calculate multi-step problems with numbers in any form, whether it's given as fractions, decimals, or percents. So that's what we're going to try to do. So let's break down this first problem. It says Miss Donaldson earns $18.80 per hour for the first 40 hours she works in a week. She earns 1.5 times that amount per hour for each hour beyond 40 hours in a week. Last week, Miss Donaldson worked 45.5 or 45.5 hours. How much money did she earn overall for the week? So, first of all, this really happens in life. You make a certain amount of money per hour for the first 40 hours you work, and then beyond that, a company will pay you what's called time and a half, or 1.5 times your amount of money you make per hour for every hour you're willing to work over 40 hours. So what you have to do is you have to think about, okay, $18.80 per hour for the first 40 hours she works. And what we're going to have to do to figure out this problem, we're going to have to figure out the money earned for the first 40 hours. We'll then have to figure out the money earned for hours worked over 40 hours. How many additional hours did she work? And then to figure out how much she earned that week, we'll add those two numbers together. If we take how much she made before, for up to 40 hours, and then how much she made extra for working over 40 hours, those two numbers together will tell us how much she earned for the week. So she makes $18.80 per hour for the first 40 hours. $18.80 per hour for the first 40 hours. Okay. So if she makes $18.80 per hour for the first 40 hours, that means in the first hour she makes $18.80, in the next hour she makes $18.80, in the hour after that she makes $18.80. Oh, if I take $18.80 times the number of hours she worked at that rate, that will give me the overall amount she made. Let's see, 0 times 0 is 0. And so we could, if you need 0 times 8 is 0, 0 times 8 is 0, 0 times 1 is 0. I could have just put a 0 placeholder, but that's all right. Now I'm moving over to the tens place, so now I have to put a 0 placeholder. 4 times 0 is 0. 4 times 8 is 32. Put down a 2, carry a 3. 4 times 8 is 32, 33, 34, 35. Put down a 5, carry a 3. 4 times 1 is 4, plus 3 is 7. Adding those up, 0, 0, 2, 5, 7. Over 2 places, over 2 places. So that would be $752 she makes for her first 40 hours of work. All right, that seems reasonable. That seems reasonable because I say to myself, okay, pretend this was a 20. 20 times 4 is 80. So 20 times 40 would be 800. So I'm just estimating. And that's how I check if my 752 works. I round this number up to 20. I say, okay, 2 times 4 is 8. So 20 times 40. I first would do 2 times 4 is 8. So 20 times 4 would be 80. So 20 times 40 would be 800. It's just a quick estimation I do in my head to be sure that this number works. That's just a little aside. All right, so we know how much they made for the first 40 hours. Now we got to figure out how much they earned over 40 hours. Well, we know they make 1.5 times the amount per hour for each hour beyond 40 hours. 1.5 times the amount of money they make per hour. Oops, $18.80. So it's 1.5 times their hourly rate. So we'll have to figure that out. And they make that money for how many hours? It's for each hour worked beyond 40. Oh, they worked 45.5 hours or 45.5. So then I would have to do 45.5, take away that first 40 hours, and hopefully most of us can see, oh, they worked 5.5 extra hours. So now I have to multiply these two numbers together. Well, you can either change this to a decimal or you can change that to a fraction. But since we're talking overall money, I think I'll change this to a decimal. 1.5 is 1.5. 1.5 times 1880. Oh God, I got to figure that out. So I would take 1880 times 1.5. And so 5 times 0 is 0. 5 times 8 is 40. Put down a 0, carry a 4. 5 times 8 is 40 plus 4 is 44. 5 times 1 is 5 and 4 more is 9. 0 placeholder. 1 times 0 is 0. 1 times 8 is 8. 1 times 8 is 8. 1 times 1 is 1. Add those together. 0, 0, 8 and 4 is 12. 9, 10, and 8, that's 18. That's 282. Move over 2 places. That makes no sense at all. So, oh, had 3 places. 1, 2, 3. Sorry. All right, that makes more sense. Because what I did was I said to myself, that's a 2 there. As I multiplied this out, I immediately knew my answer didn't make any sense. Because if I did my rounding again, and I said, this is 20. 20 times 1 is still around 20. So when I suddenly was getting 282, I was like, that makes no sense. So then I said, oh, wait, we have to move over 3 decimal places because 1, 2, 3. Oh, now 2820 makes a whole lot more sense. That's why estimation is important, because if you didn't round this to 20 and just forget about the extra decimal part, if you said 20 times 1, I know my answer has to be somewhere around 20. So if you get 282, that's not even in the realm of possibility. Sorry about that. So she makes 28.20 per hour for every hour that she works over 40 hours. Well, she works 5.5 extra hours. Oh, goodness, a lot of multiplying of decimals today. 2820 times 5.5. Again, if I round this to a 30, 30 times 5, 3 times 5 is 15, so 30 times 5 would be about 150. So my answer is not somewhere around 150 or at max 200. I know I've made a mistake. Okay, 5 times 0 is 0. 5 times 2 is 10. Put down a 0, carry a 1. 5 times 8 is 40, plus 1 is 41. 5 times 2 is 10, so that gets me to a 14. 0 placeholder. 5 times 0 is 0. 5 times 2 is 10. Put down a 0, carry a 1. 5 times 8 is 40, and 1 is 41. 5 times 2 is 10, and 4 more is 14. We'll add these together. 0, 0, 1, 5, 5, 1. I got to move over 1, 2, 3 places. 1, 2, 3 places. So that would be $155.10. And that seems reasonable. I said it was going to be around 150. I'm going to check that one on a calculator because I just want to make sure that I have the correct numbers before I move on. 150, 110. Okay, good. I just wanted to double check. So for the first 40 hours, they make $752. The extra overtime, they make $155.10. We got to add those two numbers. 752 plus 155.10. So that's 10. 7, 2 and 5 is 7. 5 and 5 is 10. 7, 8, 9. 907. So that week she makes $907.10. All right, well, here is the kicker to this problem. The kicker is once you make that money, that's not really the amount you get to bring home in your paycheck. So the second half of this problem on the New York State test, this was only one piece of this problem. It's extended response. They would have let you use a calculator. I chose not to. So the next part of this problem is how much money do you really get to bring home from that $907.10. So the first part's just the original write-up. $907.10 is the amount of money she earns that week. Let's find out how much this poor woman brings home. It says a health insurance payment of $34.55 was deducted from Miss Donaldson's earnings for the week. That really happens. You have to deduct the amount of money you make. You have to subtract off or deduct the amount you have to pay in health insurance. So we're going to have to take our original amount, subtract off the amount we pay in health insurance. Super. And then after you take away that health insurance, you get to pay taxes on the money you earn. Excuse me. And they're saying the taxes equal 28% of the balance. And you have to deduct those taxes. Good times. What's the amount you actually bring home? Okay, so first of all, you take your original amount you make. You deduct off what you pay in health insurance. And that'll give you the balance that you'd bring home if you didn't have to pay taxes, but you do. Okay, so let's borrow. That becomes a 0. That's a 10. 10 minus 5 is 5. Can't take 5 from 0. 7, take 1 away from 7. That's a 6. That's a 10. 10 minus 5 is 5. 6 minus 4 is 2. That becomes an 8. That's a 10. 10 minus 3 is 7. So 872. So this is her balance that she would be bringing home. Balance of pay, I should say. That she'd be bringing home if she didn't have to pay taxes. But we all pay taxes. So now, after we deducted that health insurance, we have to take 28% off the money she still is going to earn to figure out how much she's going to bring home. Well, right now, that should be 100% of her balance, but we get to deduct off 28% of that, and let's see what percent she still is going to be able to bring home of that money. I just find it funny because people hear, I made $907 this week, good times. By the time you bring your check home, it is not that much money at all. Okay, so I have to borrow from that one. That 1 becomes a 0. That becomes a 10. I now can borrow from that 10. That becomes a 9. That's a 10. 10 minus 8 is 2. 9 minus 2 is 7. Okay, she still gets to bring home 72% of this money. She's feeling good about this. So now, this is now a throwback to our percent unit. This first lesson of our expressions and equations unit is just a throwback to our sign number unit with all this decimal work. And now we're going to do a throwback to our percent unit because now we're going to figure out 72% of this number. So you know the part she gets to bring home is 72% of the whole balance. Fun times. So we're going to look for the part she actually gets to bring home from her paycheck. We know that she gets to bring home 72% of that balance. So if we look at this, 72% means 72 out of 100. So you can multiply that balance by 72 hundredths, or a lot of times we just write it as the decimal. So this is 72 hundredths times $872.55. That's going to give us what she can bring home. And the only reason I'm doing all this long multiplication of decimals, trying to remind you in your sign number unit, we did this quite a bit. So I'm going to multiply that by 0.72. Excellent. This is less than 1, so I know my final answer has to be under 872. All right. So let's take a look. I'm going to run out of time. I'm going to actually use a calculator because I know I'll run out of time. So if on your calculator you do 0.72 times 872.55, that woman is thrilled. She gets to bring home $628.236 Because of that 6, that bumps that up to 24 cents. $628.